You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, and welcome out there in podcast land. You have reached Johnny Has the Keys, a podcast about horror, science fiction, movies, television, literature, things that imprinted on us and hopefully may have imprinted on you. My name is David, and I'm here with my good friend Tim. Hey, Tim.
Hey, David, how is it going today?
It is going. We are still in video world, so I'm still getting used to that. How's my hair look? Okay?
It's lovely.
Lovely. Yes. I'm getting used to it, but still enjoying it. Hopefully our people listening and watching, obviously, are enjoying it as well. So there's that.
Sorry, I'm with you.
What have you been doing or up to or hanging out or genre related?
Well, I think it's no secret to the people listening that we record a little bit early, and we're in the midst of summer right now, and it is hot as hell outside.
92 yesterday.
Yeah.
Up here in the lovely hills.
Yeah. So pretty good weather for our topic today as far as movies. As far as what I've been doing, though, it is kind of affiliated with our topic today. I went to Turner Classic Movies. You can watch a lot of their stuff on demand through their app. And I found a movie I had never seen, or if I've seen it, it's been so long I forgot it, called The Body Snatcher, with Boris Karloff. It was a Val Lewton production.
Ooh, there you go.
Directed by Robert Wise. Based on a Robert Louis Stevenson Robert Louis Stevenson short story about a doctor that, learns more about the human body like doctors do, cutting up cadavers. So he has a provider of cadavers played by Karloff, and one of the best roles I think I've ever seen him play. He's fantastic in it. And he is creepy as hell, and then you learn, it's not even gradually, it's almost immediate that you learn he's actually murdering people so that he can sell them to this doctor.
So there's that.
Yeah. It's a classic film, 1945. Of course, we love Robert Wise. We've said before he's an American treasure. He's directed so many great movies, but this was one of his early efforts. And Val Lewton, with RKO, we're going to discuss this coming up, basically kind of revolutionized horror movies in the 40s. Moving it away more from Universal to RKO and away from creatures to suspense and shadow and things like that. So you see a lot of really good photography and cinematography and lighting in The Body Snatcher, just like you do our topic today.
How does it fall into our topic today? Is it after, I'm assuming?
Yes, after Cat People came out in 42. So
you gave it away. Oh,
I know.
Gave it away already.
Hey, the cat's out of the bag.
Oh, okay. There we go. Well, that's cool. I may have to look that up because I have to admit my knowledge of Val Lewton was a little stunted, and I didn't know a lot of the stuff he did until we had watched this movie, and I did some research on it. So I may have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's cool, and that's I talked about this, I think, when I was texting you when I was watching it. I'm just a sucker for like Turner Classic Movies. I can go back and watch those movies from the 40s and 50s all the time. I'm like a junkie. I could easily do a podcast with you or somebody else just on classic movies from like before the 60s or whatever, or maybe before the 70s. So there's just so many of them out there, or even do one that's kind of tied to Turner Classic Movies. Just do the ones that are on Turner Classic Movies too. I think
Yeah.
that would be a great idea for a podcast if somebody's not doing that already.
Well, maybe we should, for maybe our special Patreon customers, maybe we should pick one and do the dual watch and do it as a classic
We
rather
could.
than a genre piece.
Yeah, they don't
Just,
always. It's yeah. I was going to say it wouldn't necessarily be genre because they usually don't have too many of those.
right,
Like,
but a good classic,
mhm.
And I even like some of the more exploitative earlier works in the 40s and 50s.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that would
Like
be a
some
good one.
giant crab monster. Right.
Crab people.
So what's been going on with you now?
I wanted to mention, normally we don't, we've said from the very beginning, we're not going to take up a lot of people's times with advertising and sellouts and ads and do all that kind of stuff on our podcast.
Except you can buy my book now. Both are available now.
Yeah. Shameless plug for book.
Yeah.
But yes, do that. And the link will be attached, I'm sure. And we've been good about that. However, we do occasionally, especially if someone says, hey, would you plug us? We'll plug you, sort of thing. Well, this particular podcast that I am really excited about and been listening to for the past, I've probably been listening to it for over a month, but this past week, listened to 3 episodes in a row.
Wow.
I found it just because of the genre, of course, but it's called Buffy and the Art of Story.
Okay.
And it is it's a single person podcast by a lady named Lisa M. Lilly. And she's very formulaic in the podcast. So you can almost time it down to, this is the part where she does the introduction. This is the part where she sets this up. This is this,
Okay.
all the way down. But basically
Outline.
she's doing what we did with Hill House, she's doing with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So she's starting at episode 1, and each week is a different episode.
That's awesome.
But it's not just, hey, I liked it, or hey, this was good. Her whole premise about it is, how is the story told? What's the inciting incident? Where's the 1/4 turn? What happens to the character development? And then she ends it all with a little section each week saying, all right, if you don't want any spoilers for the rest of the series and you haven't watched the rest of the series, then turn off right now. Now I'm going to do the spoilers. And then she waits a couple of seconds. Then she goes into spoilers about, did you notice this particular line or this particular character, this particular scene? Well, in season 4,
Wow.
She's very knowledgeable.
So she's like a compendium too.
Yeah, it's really good for writers. I would love for you to give it at least an episode listen and see what you think, because I love the way she breaks down the story of how you structure a story so that it works.
Well, it sounds like she's kind of a Whedon disciple, because doesn't he write most of those? Didn't he write most of those?
Joss Whedon? Well,
Whedon.
He creates and oversees it,
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. And especially, he did a lot of the, season pilots and finales and the whole story arc and all that. He had a big control of it. Yeah, there's a Twitter that I follow too called Whedon-esque, which is all just about Joss Whedon and storytelling. But I think you might like it and find it very interesting, the way she structures or examines story structure.
Cool.
It's very interesting.
It's been so long since I've watched them. I did not watch them when they originally aired, but I bought the DVDs sometime around the turn of the millennium, like the early 2000s, and I watched them all, just like binged them, all of them.
Yeah, I've probably seen that series, the entire, series, like 3 times.
Wow, that's a lot.
I like that story. I like the way it's told. I like the dynamics of the story. I like the way it changes, so it's another one of my favorites, like Babylon 5. So
very good.
There you go.
Very good.
That's what I've been doing. I've been listening to Lisa M. Lilly and Buffy and the Art of Story. And
very cool.
A great podcast that you can find on your podcast app of choice.
Podcord. Yeah. Oh, I can't even speak. So that brings us today to our topic of what our podcast is about. And I hinted a little bit earlier. actually the prior episode, that this is a double feature.
It is.
Yes, it is. And we are going to be covering Cat People from 1942 by directed by Jacques Tourneur. And then we are going to cover its remake or sequel or whatever you want to call it from 1982 called Cat People, which was directed by Paul Schrader in color. Very colorful movie. Cat People, if you want to, if since we're starting with the 42 version, the basic premise of the story is a woman. It's kind of a psychological horror story where you're not sure if it's in her head or not, but she's convinced that she could potentially turn into a murderous cat if she has sex. They don't blatantly say that because it is 1942, but they hint at her not consummating her marriage or getting, trying not to be aroused and tempted by any amorous or physical touch, I guess you would say, from the man that she is in love with. The second one is, it is about the same concept where the woman in question, and there's actually a man cat in this one as well, are creatures that will become cat people. They're people that will become cats if they have sex. This one is a lot different. It's a little less psychological and a little more sexual. Some people have actually referred to it as a porno. I didn't think it was that bad, but it is very graphic, a lot bloodier. They don't rely on the things that made the original cool as far as storytelling as much as they do on gore and sex in the 40 years later, in the loud, in your face 80s, I guess you would say, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I would, I also want to stress, if you have not seen these movies, go watch them now and come back to us. But if you don't want to and are still listening or whatever, we do want to stress that by cats, none of this is cute cats. These are
it's not little kittens.
Large breed cats like panthers and tigers and cougars and pumas and all that.
No, but I would love to see that movie if they turned into just a house cat. Wait, they made that movie. Disney did it, didn't they? That darn cat.
That darn cat. Yeah. This is really interesting too, and I don't know how much you have in notes or all that kind of stuff, but I thought this was a great comparison of two horror movies and how to tell the story, the same basic story, in two totally different ways.
Yeah.
Two totally different styles, from not just black and white to color, but cinematography and structure and everything down to the, but both of them scary, both of them mood pieces, both of them unique in acting performance, I have to say,
right,
for both. So they have some challenges there, but I would recommend both of them as good horror genre pieces.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised to say that I would too, because it had been, I have not seen the 1982 version since the 80s. It's been a long time.
Me too.
And I was doing preliminary research for both of them, and I was reading stuff that made me think, ooh, it must not be as good as I remember. When I was pleasantly surprised. I still kind of like this movie.
Yeah, well, I remember it was a great hookup movie in the 80s. It was great to have around,
Yeah.
Hey, have you seen Cat People? Let's watch that.
You old cat.
But I have to say that I had never seen the original. I had not seen the Val Lewton one.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was really great to watch it for the first time and see it and everything. And I did watch them in order. So I watched that one first and took my notes and did all that, and then watched the second one. I liked like in your synopsis, one of the things that you mentioned was it is a the first one is a lot more psychological. The
Mhm.
second one is a lot more I guess practical is a good way to say it, from the gore to the sex to the
The music.
interpretation of the
Mhm.
legend and everything. Whereas there's a lot more implication. The first one is almost like a psychological thriller rather
Mhm.
than a straightforward horror monster wolfman sort of thing, which I'm sure was kind of challenging at the time and probably pretty interesting, but still very, very well done. I really liked the first. I'd have to say, comparison wise, I probably like the 42 better than the 84.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's definitely the superior film. Um, I was just trying to refresh my mind with some of the background. Um, Val Lewton was originally an editor for David O. Selznick,
Mm-hmm.
and I think RKO pulled him in to try to generate money with some low budget horror movies to make up for some crazy productions they had done, like the Magnificent Ambersons that like flopped, but Orson Welles
Well, that
spent
was
like
their fault too.
Orson Welles spent like tons of money on it.
Well, but and it would have been great if they'd let him do what he wanted to do rather than be a
Right.
studio.
But
You know,
it was, I want to say they were part of not a clique, but a group of people that all had worked together,
mm-hmm.
mostly for Selznick. Jacques Tourneur, I think, may have. Robert Wise definitely had, and I had mentioned him in The Body Snatcher earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And DeWitt Bodine, the guy that wrote the story, the screenplay. So
Yeah,
all of
part of
them.
my research was that Bodine said that it was a very collaborative effort on the screenplay. They
Mhm.
shared ideas. Lewton, did rewrites on it. That they all kind of contributed to creating this mythos that all came from a statement of, Universal has Wolfman and vampires and all that, but nobody's done anything with a cat. That
No,
was the statement, and say, well,
exactly.
let's do a cat story.
And let's do it cheap, no
Right.
effects. you know, um, they also, ironically enough, borrowed Universal actors from those movies you just mentioned. Or maybe not the Wolfman, but they also, borrowed Karloff and Lugosi to be both. Karloff and Lugosi are in The Body Snatcher. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Uh,
So it's RKO Studios, the studios that what also are featured in Rocky Horror Picture Show. There's your key.
yes. Well, and I mean, the best movie ever made by several critics list, Citizen Kane was
Citizen
RKO as
Kane.
well.
Yeah. Um, I've got a note here. The suits at RKO were reportedly dubious about this finished film and felt it was too subtle, which I think is funny because they didn't want to spend money, and
Mm-hmm.
possibly not overt enough to compete with the Universal brand of horror. But I thought it did fine. And that, Val Lewton went on to do The Body Snatcher, which I mentioned, Bedlam, which is one of my personal favorites from a child, being a kid. That was a Karloff vehicle as well. Cat People, Isle of the Dead, and The Leopard Man, which gets good marks, but I've never seen that. Have you? The
I have not.
Leopard Man? Mm-mm.
Nope.
So, and then Turner was a Frenchman. His father was also a director, and he did the second unit for Selznick's Tale of Two Cities in 1913. Is that no 1935? Excuse me. And that's where he first met Val Lewton.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much. I don't want to just read from my notes, but that's the gist of that group of people and how they came together. Did you have any other background before we move on to the cast?
No, not really as far as background goes. I mean, I have a lot of reaction to seeing it for the first time and a lot of
Okay.
comments on that. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we can do that first. I don't have a lot on casting. There's not a lot of alternates. Just
We can
history.
do casting because I
Okay.
mean the first thing I want to say is I thought she was really well cast and really good.
Yeah.
I know that in
Simone.
research they had said they wanted a a cute little kitten face kind of woman is the way Lewton, I think, had put it to Tourneur. And yeah, Puss in Boots, but I thought she was great. She was mysterious. She was sensual. She played all of the emotional range really well, from being frightened to, I really liked her in this role, and looked her up and found out that she basically didn't do a lot after that. She went to France and did a bunch and people didn't like her or made fun of her accent or something like that.
Right.
And I thought that was unfortunate because I thought she was great.
Yeah. One of the reasons I remember her name is because our friend Denise Oswald, who we used to know in Tennessee, she used to have phrases she would repeat all the time, and Simone was one of them. She would go, Simone.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. That and a few that come to mind. But anyway,
but I thought she was great. I thought the doctor who Tom Conway, I think, or whomever I've got in his notes, was appropriately creepy and kind of weird, and that I liked that. I thought I recognized Kent Smith from some other 40s and 50s movies.
The Spiral Staircase is the main one. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And he was a great, and I thought he was a strong lead in this. I thought he did a good job, and I really liked the girl from The Office.
Alice.
Alice.
She's played by Jane Randolph, but they actually at the time considered Jennifer Jones, who is more of a name. But yeah, she's good. I mean, I think the whole cast is good.
I love the way she was written, though. She was written very, you could tell from like the third scene she was interested in him, but they were coworkers and friends and But she was also a very independent woman in the 40s.
She's smoking.
Yeah, and doing her own thing and saying, this is, I'm okay to walk home alone, except for buses, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, so I thought cast-wise, they did an excellent job in the casting.
The reason Kent Smith stuck out to me was The Spiral Staircase, because that was one of my mother's favorite movies, and she had always said, you have to watch this movie. And then they remade it in the 80s. Like a television movie. I want to say Rachel Ward or somebody was in it. Anyway, it wasn't as good, obviously.
No.
And
I
then
didn't think the original really was that good. It was okay, but it was okay.
It was like a knockoff of a Hitchcock movie.
Yep.
And then the Commodore was played by Jack Holt. That's the only other casting note that I have, basically. Simone was French. She did look like a cat. So she was adequately cast. She was a good actress too, and like you said, she didn't really go on to do much else.
So the director Jacques Tourneur, was he French? I'm assuming.
Yes.
And Lewton is Russian, right? So it was a bunch of immigrants doing this movie. What?
Right.
They can't make America great that way.
No. If we built a wall, they wouldn't have made that movie.
Get on the other side. There you go.
Jacques was born in Paris in 1904.
Wow.
He went to Hollywood, like I said, with his father, and was hired to run second unit for Selznick's Tale of Two Cities, the Dickens novel. And that's where he and Val met. And then when Val went to RKO to do these movies, he picked Jacques to do this one. And he picked Robert Wise to do Body Snatcher. He was like picking the directors that he knew and liked. Good. So that's how this group came together. And then DeWitt Bodine came in, as I said, as a writer, also having worked. DeWitt is actually known for writing the screenplay to I Remember Mama with Irene Dunn.
Yeah,
and that was nominated for an Oscar for Best Screenplay. So that tells you right there he had some chops, and that's why they recruited him, I'm sure. Now,
he came from my research says that he came originally as a stage actor. So he was an actor before he was a writer.
I think so. I think
that's cool.
Did.
Yeah. Let me look at notes and see. I mean, I think impression-wise, the great things about this movie are the things that I would think would be key elements for people to say, oh, I remember it, or oh, I want to see it, are of course the the subtlety of the whole cat thing, you know, except it's very overt in her apartment, since there's a cat in almost every shot in some way. It's either in a picture or a sculpture or something. But just the way they downplay that. I mean, she tells her mythic story, but then they kind of downplay it. And everything is implied, which I liked a lot. They didn't have to rip somebody's arm off or have somebody, you know, eat pus or whatever, you know, or whatever. But the pool scene, I think, is probably endemic of this movie. I mean,
It's
that's
iconic. Yeah.
it is, yeah. The ending, having such a bleak, so to speak, ending kind of thing, rather than it being so uplifting sort of thing. Very, very, you know, I guess a big key for me from this, and it's the first note I took, was the very beginning of this with the little quote and the black and white and the very pretentious music. I think it's Ray Webb or somebody like that did the music. Very Wolfman. Reminds me of Wolfman a lot.
Well, and it was only a year later.
Well, the entire arc of this reminds me of Wolfman, even the way it ends, you know, with the protagonist essentially dying. You know, so it's very Wolfman inspired, I guess. That would be a big key for me.
Well, and it would be a key in multiple ways too, because of the whole shifting aspect and the change to an animal. I mean, there's Wolfman would be my biggest key probably for this film. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
I mean, the overall pacing I like of it. I like the jump scares. I thought they worked. I like the
one of them he
angles.
trademarked, basically.
Well, that was the bus one, right?
The bus, they call it the bus jump or something, where she's going one direction and the bus comes into frame from the other direction. And you're expecting something to be behind her when it's actually in front of her.
Right.
Which they do all the time in movies now, different ways. But at the time, and then they have the loud air brake.
The air brakes.
Yeah. So it's startling. And they even did one similar in the 82 movie, didn't they? They did something similar. There were a couple of homages for sure.
Yeah, that, the woman in the bar saying you're my sister,
the pool. Yeah.
Those are basically, and the essentially the chase, because she's jogging in the 82 version.
Right.
And a bus, again, the bus scares her.
That's I knew I saw it again. Yeah.
The thing that I liked about that scene, though, while we're there, which you don't get in the jogging sequence with Schrader, is the whole thing with the heels clicking. Yeah. And she had the heels clicking, and then she could hear Simone's heels clicking. Yeah. And then she kind of noticed it, but then suddenly she's still clicking and they stop.
Yeah.
And she looks around, you just see those lights with all the shadows.
It's awesome.
Going back.
Yeah.
And just the way they did the audio there was great. It was a good sequence.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I've read up on Val Lewton and Jacques Tourneur, but I knew going into this that they're known for light and shadow. That is the one thing that is like their legacy. Is movies that the mood is created from light and shadow. And this is by far probably one of the best.
Well, and they use in cinematography what's called low contrast black and white, which means the blacks are really black, the shadows are really dark, and there's a lot of distance and depth that you see when they do that. So like, and just the way they did the shadows of the pool, the water on the sea, on the walls, and the sea, all that was great. Yeah, great cinematography.
Yeah. Yeah, you reminded me earlier of her apartment. I had forgotten about that. Isn't there like a statue of that king somebody that
with a cat on his sword?
It's like impaled on his sword. Yeah, yes. Upside down. Yeah. And that king was supposedly the legend that ran the demonic beast from the village, and that, you know, she's one of them apparently that escaped, you know, or descendant of one of them.
One thing that I think in kind of in a bridge or as a bridge in comparison, one of the things I don't like about the Schrader is the way they mess with the mythos a lot. I liked her telling the story of the village, and the village devolved into witchcraft, and and they essentially cursed themselves, and then this liberator came in, but it still goes down in the generations and descendants. That's really
it's awesome,
cool myth. And the way they tell it with just a singular story, we didn't have to see a flashback, we didn't have to hear all that. I mean, they show, I think, one shot of the guy, somebody in a costume with a sword,
right?
But they don't do a lot of
flashback,
to see a whole flashback memory thing.
Because
I
again, like
it's psychological, it's scary.
And that, to me, it's also a very Wolfman key, is the whole story behind it, the whole legend, the myth. However, I do like the Schrader flashback, because you've got that really cool tree with all the giant cats in it, and the Bowie music and the red lighting. I mean, I still like the atmosphere that creates, even though it's not as detailed as the story she tells. Does that make sense?
Well, I thought it was a good hook, and it would have been great as a hook if then later on, when I guess Paul, the brother, or maybe even have it told from the Gypsy Voodoo Woman character, the Ruby Lee character, Ruby D. Maybe tells the story, and we get a little bit more of the back of what it is mythically, because it was a great hook. Yeah, I mean, I love skulls suddenly being revealed in red sand, and you're hearing Bowie sing, and all that was a great opening. It's just, you're going, what is going on? And you never really get. Well, and
the whole sacrifice is like an Anne Rice. It's like something out of Anne Rice when they're tying her to the tree. I was like, wow. This reminds me of the Vampire Lestat. Yeah. Wow, that's a key I didn't even think of, but just now.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So still in the 40s version.
Okay.
The Lewton version.
Yeah, I've got some more notes.
Yeah, go.
Well, I haven't got to tell you. I told you about they were trying to recoup some of the money from Orson Welles' Magnificent Ambersons, so they actually reused sets from that movie as well.
I was gonna say that, because the I recognized it, the hallway, the staircase, and everything. I was going, that's Magnificent Ambersons.
I don't think I've ever seen that movie.
Very impressive. I mean, Orson spent he had learned a lot doing Citizen Kane, because there's so many firsts in Citizen Kane. First time you ever saw a ceiling in a movie. First time you ever saw impressionistic sets where it's really just a window and a sofa, and the way he lights it with darkness in between it looks really moody and stuff like that. So for Ambersons, there's a lot of scenic design in Ambersons. And so you can remember that iconic stair. Look how big those walls are. I was going, how much money does this little artist make? Because this apartment is freaking huge.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was a brownstone, and then they went up a giant staircase to a door. So I was assuming maybe she had a room in the brownstone.
A big room?
It was still a big room. But I was like, at first thinking the whole place was hers. And I was like, no way.
Well, and I also I thought it was interesting. Well, okay, some challenges that the movie has. First of all, you fall in love in about 17 and a half minutes. You get married in about a week and a half. You've never even kissed the girl, and you're going to, pledge your life to her. Okay.
Oh my God.
So that was a little bit of a hurdle. But then they move into her apartment. They don't go with the man in the 40s. That seemed very odd to me, because they're living in her apartment. And
yeah, they are. Sets. That's funny that you say that. And it's because it was the Magnificent Amberson set.
Yeah, it was. Darling, it's a magnificent set. We have to stay here. But yeah, I can't take my cats with me. I want to hear the zoo. So I thought that was a hurdle. And then the only other thing I've got really odd in my notes is, wow, that's a unique choice for a bathing suit top in the pool scene, because she's got the ultra torpedoes sort of thing happening. I was going, really? Who picked that suit out?
Torpedo tits.
Yeah.
That's very funny. I forgot to mention this in the background, but originally Val Lewton wanted to adapt an Algernon Blackwood story. I'm not, if for those of you not familiar with Algernon Blackwood, he was a ghost story writer primarily. He wrote really good, creepy stuff. A long time ago. He's not anywhere near a modern writer. I can't even remember when he wrote. I want to say early 20th century. So like the 1900s, maybe even late 19th century. And but the story was set in a French village, and the sets and the costumes were going to be so expensive that they just preserved some of the aspects of it for her background, and then just completely wrote a modern story. So her background being, in Serbia, that came from the Algernon Blackwood story. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't do the title. The title of the story was called Ancient Sorceries.
Yeah, and I had read that one of Lewton's comments on it was, people, if we're going to tell a good horror story, people need to relate to the characters, and they don't relate to period pieces. So he wanted to set it contemporary, and to create a contemporary horror story, which does change it from all of Universal's. That was a good idea to
bring
make
it to
the RKO
States.
horrors different than the period monsters that Universal was doing.
Yeah, it was a bridge to the 50s. Yeah. So anyway, and then they gave Val $150,000 to make the film, and there were scenes requiring special effects to be done in the shadows to create the suspense. But the studio started insisting that more footage of the Panther be included. So apparently he was able to bring even more of that suspenseful balance by using shots of the Panther at times to juxtapose some of the moody atmosphere of the shadows.
Yeah, I mean, I think Schrader definitely took that to heart in his, because there's a lot of Panther.
There's a lot of Panther in that movie. Yeah,
in that one, but see, I would have loved to have seen less. Like, I would have loved to have. I like his moody pieces. I like that whole scene where basically the male, I can't remember his name, Oliver.
Oliver Reed.
Yeah.
That's why they changed the name in the 80s, because by then he was around and they were afraid people would confuse him.
And he did a Wolfman movie.
He did The Curse of the Werewolf for Hammer. But
he's almost in full silhouette for that whole scene, and she's in silhouette too, standing at the window, and they're listening to the zoo and all that, and then she comes, turns the lights on. I love that. I like the scene where the doctor's attacked too, and the way they do the shadows on the wall and everything with the lamps being turned over and all the up angle lighting. I mean, that was just really impressive. Some scary, cool stuff.
Well, right. And he also, and you, to what you were saying, as far as keeping it more out of the frame, unlike Schrader, who had it in there often, a lot of it was the Panther in the shadows. And only visible in the zoo cage. I mean, a lot of times you heard it, like in the swimming pool, you didn't see it.
Right. And I also, I think we should comment that it's a transformation is never shown. No. In this version. It's heavily implied. Like, for example, even her bathrobe, which she discovers after the pool scene is ripped up and everything else. The character Simone plays could have easily done that with scissors or a knife or whatever, not a cat. Right. She thinks she's being stalked by her, but the bus scares her, and we never see that. So it's not really until the attack on the doctor that we actually are validated that her fear is true. And he ends up essentially stabbing her, and she goes to the zoo and dies. As a panther, she doesn't change back, and we never see a transformation like Wolfman or any of that. And
he says, "We know she wasn't lying," or something.
Right. She was telling us the truth, or she wasn't lying to us. Right. So I'm going to go away with my work wife here. We're going to have
my second.
my second wife. Yeah. Um,
um,
but it's a great movie. I really recommend this movie.
Yeah, it was a huge hit at the box office. So much so that they delayed the release of the next two Lewton films, which were I Walked with a Zombie, starring Bela Lugosi, and The Leopard Man, both 1943.
There you go.
And I'm pretty sure that Wolfman was 1941. So this came in 1942. So it was right after the Wolfman.
But remember, wasn't it? I'm trying to remember our podcast because we covered Wolfman. And wasn't it like it was written, shot, and done in like 2 months? And it was like near the end of 41. It was like near the end of like in October, November, or something like that. But
I think they started in October and it was in theaters in December or something.
Yeah,
something crazy.
It was something crazy like that for that film. Yeah.
I guess that's all I have. I may have. Well, I mentioned the set of the Magnificent Ambersons. That's kind of a key. And then the only other really key I had was it said, I can't remember. I don't know why I wrote this down. Let's see. Cat People is the first film Molina narrates for Valentin in. Oh, that's it. Cat People is the first film Molina narrates for Valentin in the play Kiss of the Spider Woman.
Oh, okay.
And I have not seen that in so long. It took me a second to recognize their names, but now I get it. So that's a key.
The only key I have for this is Argento. This movie is very, I think, severely influenced that Italian Argento sort of storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely.
From very impressionistic cinematography to shadow usage to just the pacing of the story and staying so much into the lives of the characters. I think it's very, for a key, it was a huge key that hit me.
Yeah, that would be a really interesting take if he did a version of this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. That would be
so do you want to move on over to the Schrader one? Any
sure.
Things we have?
Let me picture Nastasia Kinski. Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. And her perky little ensemble. Paul Schrader was primarily a writer for Martin Scorsese. He wrote Taxi Driver. He wrote Raging Bull, both Oscar-worthy movies and nominated movies. He directed some films that are not well known. Well, one of them is American Gigolo is pretty well known. And then he directed one called Hardcore that this is something I'm a little reluctant to admit was a movie I was obsessed with as a kid because it was a movie about the porn industry that I could see on HBO when my parents weren't around.
George C. Scott.
Yeah, George C. Scott's daughter is like, she runs away and becomes a porn actress, potentially against her will. I think she may have been kidnapped or something, and he's like trying to find her.
Yep.
So that's also a Paul Schrader movie. The only other note I have about directors is that around 1980, before this movie was made, Roger Vadim was attached to it briefly.
That would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting. And would he have cast?
Probably would have.
Jane Fonda.
Yeah, he might have.
And then she wouldn't have been French or exotic. She would have just been a ballsy American.
Progressive.
Woman.
Yeah.
Progressive. I love Jane Fonda. No offense to anybody out there.
Me either. I mean, I do too. Barbarella, baby. But anyway, well, or Frankie and, I mean, her new one is
Grace and Frankie. Yeah. The China Syndrome.
The other things I have for Schrader, from production-wise, were he also did Mosquito Coast. He wrote that, which I liked, the Harrison Ford movie, and he wrote the screenplay for Last Temptation of Christ, which was another one that So I think as a writer, really strong, which is really weird then because this movie is not very well written, and I'm curious but it's not written by him, but maybe he should have helped with that. Because
Okay, and that you lead me to what will be a long line of connections to other horror movies that this movie has, and one of them is the writer.
Mm.
It is written based on DeWitt Bodine's, original screenplay. It is written by Alan Ormsby. And as soon as I saw his name, I was like, children shouldn't play with dead things. Children shouldn't play with dead things.
Okay. See, I was Porky's too. See, that's where I knew him from.
Well, it is because he did work with Bob Clark, and Bob Clark directed Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. I'm getting them confused because Alan Ormsby was an actor, a director, and a writer, so I may have that backwards. But I think Bob Clark directed both. He definitely directed Death Dream, which was also, I believe, written by Ormsby, which is a take on it's When Johnny Came Marching Home. It's the whole monkey's paw thing.
Yep.
And it's also known as Dead of Night, and Tom Savini did the makeup on that. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. Really?
Yeah, it's low budget, like treasure trove for me. Alan Ormsby also did makeup, and guess what he did makeup for?
Oh no, please. What?
Shockwaves, the Nazi zombie movie with Peter Cushing.
Yes, I love that movie.
So Alan Ormsby wrote this big budget movie version of Cat People after doing a shit ton of low budget classic horror from the 70s and early 80s. And I'll give you one more, and you're really going to love this one because I'm sure you had one. He also was a creator and created something that sold in stores that you probably owned. It was a little doll called Hugo.
Really?
Yes. The one it was Hugo, Man of 1,000 Faces, and you could do little makeup appliances on this little ball-headed doll. I had one.
Yeah.
So Alan Ormsby was quite the Renaissance man.
Well, and he, in research, he also did the Belushi movie, Substitute, and did did like a trilogy of those.
What?
So, yeah.
The
Substitute. Remember the one with the substitute teacher who's actually a security guard?
You're talking about Berenger.
No.
Yes,
I'm sorry. Tom
You
Berenger's
said Belushi, and I was like, I don't remember Belushi being in a substitute.
Belushi's brother is in one though that's similar to that.
Maybe.
That's where I'm getting the link.
Yeah. Tom Berenger is in The Substitute, and Terry O'Quinn is in The Stepfather. I always get those two confused.
The Stepfather. Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've got Roger Vadim briefly attached. It ended up being Paul Schrader. Then we've got DeWitt Bodine's script being handled by Alan Ormsby, who is just everywhere and in everything. It was made, Cat People, the original movie, the original movie Cat People was made around the original time as The Thing from Another World. No, that is not right. Why can't I read my notes?
I don't know. Read your
This,
notes.
it says this remake Cat People was made and released around the same time as The Thing from Another World in 1951 was being remade as The Thing in 1982. Well, they did both come out in 1982, but both original movies were from RKO. They were both not 1942, though. One was 1951.
Correct.
But it is funny that both those films were remade in 1982, and they were both RKO.
If I had to pick, I would pick The Thing.
I would
over
too.
This one. Although
maybe that's why it was our first episode.
Although you could watch sections of this with Nastasia Kinski, just at times. I could, but
you're a perv.
I don't have to see any of the incest brother stuff.
And I apologize to our listeners out there for fucking that up, but I basically copied and pasted the note, and I guess I couldn't read it anyway.
You just pasted that weird.
Yeah, I did. So where are we going to go from there with this movie?
Well, I guess we can talk about the casting for this particular film.
We can. There's a little bit there.
Because I think there are some successes to the casting and some not so successful. I do think it was a good choice to put Kinski and McDowell in it. Both of them are very feline in appearance and odd. They just, Malcolm McDowell's always looked weird. I think he's always been twisted since, since Clockwork Orange, and he's never recovered.
Well, he fell deeply into substance abuse and was so he had some problems with drugs for a long time, and then he got clean. So,
but so I thought both of them were interesting choices physically for the role. I think it's a little bit more challenging than what Kinski could handle, and she kind of suffers in places for that. I thought John Hurd did a great job as the leading man doing the thing, Annette O'Toole, I've always loved Annette O'Toole and everything.
She's got ties to the horror genre as well. Because she was in the original version of Stephen King's It as Beverly Marsh.
Oh yeah, that's the one I had. That's the key I had. But then the two that to me don't work. Well, all the supporting cast is terrible, from the cop to John Larroquette to Ed Begley Jr. I was going, okay, why would you put comedians in this movie? I don't
think anybody knew who they were at the time.
Well, they weren't good. So
but Larroquette had narrated Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Well, okay then, but
I'm telling you, there are ties to lots of horror movies on this.
My note says John Larroquette, 3 question marks, 1 exclamation point. Seriously,
right?
So,
but at least you get to see Begley's arm ripped off, and it is bloody nasty. I mean, it's so gnarly.
Oh yeah, they do that well. Whoever did that makeup effect, it was really good.
It looked real. I was like, "Holy shit, man! That tiger is not, that leopard is not going to let go of that arm. You are done."
I have a key for you. A key challenge. There is a key to this. Other than the year, there is another key to the thing in this. Do you know what it is? What the link is?
Is it casting?
No, it's production
though. Does Dean Cundy do something on it? No,
but you're close. All of the myth sequence, the African tree yada yada sequences were designed by
Bottin, isn't it?
No, were designed by Albert Whitlock, who was the matte artist who also did
the thing.
The Thing. And a bunch of others did Star Wars and everything else too. But
wasn't he also Forbidden Planet, or is that a different one?
No, it's a different one.
Okay,
but
yeah, I know who Whitlock is. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Interesting.
That was one of my keys back to The Thing.
Well, and like I said, another tie to the horror genre. It just seems like it's all over this movie. All right, if we start with casting, Irena was played in this one by Natasha Kinski. She is known for Tess and Paris, Texas. She is of Polish and German descent. Her father is Klaus Kinski, which we may be covering in another podcast episode this season. He's the star of something. Shared an apartment with Demi Moore in the 1980s. I thought that was fascinating. They were roommates.
That would have been a cool party place.
Right. And she has a daughter with Quincy Jones. I did not know that.
I didn't know that.
No. But she is also a star fucker. Sorry, I'm not trying to be misogynistic, but she dated and or slept with Paul Schrader, Rick Yoon, Jonathan D. Crane, Jean-Jacques Benet, Rob Lowe, John Voight, Gerard Depardieu, Dudley Moore, Milos Forman, Wim Wenders, however you say that, and Roman Polanski. She has been tied to all those guys.
That's a lot of directors, too.
It is a lot of directors and several actors to boot. And she remains friends with Polanski despite the brouhaha. So I am assuming that he slept with her when she was underage. And she went to school with the NXS lead singer Michael Hutchinson.
And he's dead. So, yeah.
So
really, I did not know she had such a prolific sexual history.
Well, she came around that time Pia Zadora came around. And didn't they have a big reputation for being non-talented people casted in big movies? I don't know. It
Sure.
seemed like which is, that rumor could go either way. She has the same birthday as Roman Polanski's late wife, Sharon Tate, which I found totally creepy.
That's creepy.
And Bo Derek was originally considered for the role. So who's better?
Interesting.
Yeah, I think she was probably better than Bo Derek.
Probably.
Yeah.
Although Bo's a blonde, so I kind of like that. But that blondes aren't usually cats.
Well, and at that time, Bo had cornrowed hair, which would have brought something to it, maybe.
No, not really.
No, not at all. Which is funny because apparently I said Natasha had relations with Dudley Moore.
Yes. He saw her running on the beach and just could not resist himself.
Wow. All right. Paul Gallier, or Gallier, was played by Malcolm McDowell. We have mentioned he's still alive. He was in Clockwork Orange.
Oh, yeah.
And he has said that his favorite all-time movie actor is James Cagney, which I love because I love James Cagney too.
That's cool.
For some reason, I cut and pasted Mary Steenburgen under Paul, which I don't think she was up for that part. So it must have been the Alice part she was up for.
Maybe. Yeah.
Because Mary Steenburgen, we also know from being Mrs. Ted Danson and other movies of the 80s. Oliver Yates was played by John Hurd. He's known for movies like Big and Home Alone and Awakenings. John Hurd died. I thought he died pretty young. He died in 2017, but he was born in 46, so he was getting up there. He revealed it was revealed that he almost turned this role down because he did think this was a porno movie. So something he saw in the script led him to believe it was a porno movie.
Well, it's like every 3 pages, naked.
Right,
you know.
right. And he said he felt very awkward during the nude scenes. This guy was considered, and he would have been good, William Hurt.
I thought of that, the same thing. They're very similar. And I think, but I always liked John Hurd as he's a good leading man.
He's a good character actor too.
Yeah.
He reminds me physically of Ryan O'Neal, but he's a better actor than Ryan O'Neal for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And then we mentioned Annette O'Toole plays the Alice part. She's still around. She's known for 48 Hours and, of course, It, which I've already mentioned. And then here is another tie for you. Famale is played by Ruby Dee.
Ruby Dee.
And she's known for A Raisin in the Sun and Do the Right Thing, but she is also known for playing Mother Abigail in the original version of The Stand.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I had that key. I was going to get you with that. That was a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And well, here's another one for you. She was married to Ossie Davis, who we just covered in Bubba Hotep playing JFK. So, and
they dyed me this color.
They had 3 kids, and he died in 2005. She died in 2014. Loved both of them. Always liked them.
Oh yeah.
Oh, actually, I've got a few more castings. Sorry. Well, we know Ed Begley was in it. Some guy named Scott Paulin played Bill Searle. I recognize his face, but I can't remember what from. Detective Brant, Frankie Faison. Ruthie, the prostitute that gets mauled. The one where the leopard is under the bed and grabs her.
Okay,
that is an actress named Lynn Lowry. She was in the movies The Crazies, directed by George Romero. Shivers, directed by David Cronenberg. And I Drink Your Blood, which is the sequel to I Eat Your Flesh.
No.
Yes. So yet another great genre dip this movie has. Somebody named Ron Diamond played Detective Ron Diamond. I'm assuming it's a friend of Paul Schrader's. I don't know.
Sure.
And then you mentioned Bronte Judson was played by John Larroquette, who was known for Night Court and, of course, Star Trek 3 and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So
Yes.
that is what I have for casting.
Well, and the only other real production thing I've got is any issues with this movie can be totally made up for by the use of Giorgio Moroder and David Bowie. Because the music to this I really like. I owned the album. I played it over and over and over again. I got the CD. I mean, it's great. However, one of the producers, or the key producer for this, was Jerry Bruckheimer, whom I loathe. And
I noticed that too.
I was going, really? Oh no.
I mean, because look what he went on to do.
Yep. However, he did produce one of my favorite series that I can just binge watch when I'm bored, which is CSI. That was Jerry Bruckheimer too.
Okay. What did he, I get him confused. There's some of those guys I get confused. Like him and Verhoeven. They're always these big, like, galactic threat or Earth-wide threat movies. Like, did one of them do?
Well, Verhoeven you should like because he's extraordinarily violent. Like RoboCop, Starship Troopers, all of the real gore violence is Paul Verhoeven as a director.
All right, Bruckheimer then, who did Independence Day?
That was Roland Emmerich.
All right, those are the ones I confuse, Emmerich and Bruckheimer.
Yeah, I could understand that a little bit because they both came out in that same kind of time period.
But and they usually did like giant movies with lots of famous people and lots like big budgets that had very little stories.
Well, Bruckheimer produced American Gigolo, which is probably how he met Schrader, I'm assuming.
Okay.
But he went on, and in the 80s and 90s, he just had hit after hit after hit, and I could not understand it. Some of them I got, some of them I didn't. But like Flashdance, Beverly Hills Cop, Top Gun, Days of Thunder, Crimson Tide, which I do like a lot. Armageddon.
I was going to say, I didn't one of them do Armageddon because yeah, okay.
It's Bruckheimer. He just did hit after hit after hit because he produced these major, big, event movies, essentially.
Well, they were formulaic and usually low on story.
Yeah, I had way too many explosions.
Lots of effects and no story, and that's one of the problems I have with Independence Day, even though that's not him. Okay, so yeah, I forgot about that, but I did see his name, and I went, oh. But then I saw this name, Bowie.
I did think it was interesting. Yeah, that's like I said. Any of our complaints will be made up for by Bowie and Moroder because that was a good pairing and good.
Very good.
I thought it was very interesting story-wise that they changed the Balkan sort of Croatian story to African. The Serbian story to African.
Mm-hmm.
That was odd. And that there were, a bunch of white foreign-sounding people in Africa. Why wouldn't it be? It'd be interesting to see. Oh, what's his? Who's the horror guy? The new one. No, the new one that's doing Twilight Zone and did.
Peele.
Jordan Peele. It'd be interesting if he would do a remake of this from the African-American perspective. I think that would be really cool.
Ooh, yeah, and make it an African myth. That would be
It's
cool.
an African story, and I think that would be a really good piece for him.
Oh, that would be.
Call him up, see if we can get him on the phone. Let's talk to him about that. That would be good.
Okay.
I just thought that was a curious transposition to do that. Rather than keep it
It's busy.
See, he's always on the phone.
Yeah. Actually, he just doesn't answer my calls.
Rather than keep the Serbian storyline, because of her accent and all that. And it doesn't tie to New Orleans. Possibly, but not really. So I think there's a lot of missed threads in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole Famali character, I think they could have used her more. It almost would have been kind of cool if they had had a narration over that sequence at the beginning and used Famale's voice telling the story.
Mm-hmm.
That
would have been
really
a great
cool.
idea. That would have been a great idea.
I did notice during the filming or during the sequence of that original flashback where they're sacrificing the girl by tying her to the tree.
Mm-hmm.
They all seem so lackadaisical. They're just kind of like shuffling around like extras. Yeah. They're not really acting. Yes. And she's not upset at all. She's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Well, and I have a new tool for acting, teaching, and coaching and everything else in that first scene, not the flashback with, it shows the young girl goes in, she looks at the panther, and the panther looks back at her and growls, and she looks at the panther, and then it closes in on the panther's face, and it suddenly morphs into Nastasia Kinski at the airport.
Right.
And then it's one tracking shot following her going through the airport until she goes over the phone and her brother meets her, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is one of the worst staged and acted scenes I have ever seen. It's like bad casting 101. I mean, every extra in it is obviously hitting their marks perfectly and doing what they're supposed to, and it's just so badly executed. It looks so fake and so wrong.
And isn't he, if I'm not mistaken, isn't she like walking away from him and him following her?
Yeah,
it's
he's like stalking.
Their backs
her.
Are both
yes.
to us. Yeah, I was like, what is going on here? Yeah, it was strange.
Yeah. It's just not a good opening at all. I was going, oh, I hope the rest of the movie isn't as bad as this, but it got better in places. But
right.
That was a terrible scene. I can use that as, okay, if you are background extra, don't be this wooden and do this. And, I'm supposed to turn here and walk 3 feet so I go past the camera. It was so bad. It was so bad.
Yeah, and I love Malcolm McDowell. I think he's a great actor, and he could be very cat-like. But if you're going to have a really hot chick play the lead in this as a cat woman, why couldn't they get a hot actor to play the man part? Because he is not attractive at all.
No, they should have gone with, even if they'd gone with a brooding kind of pseudo-Italian looking guy, that would have
like
worked
Tom
really
Berenger.
Well, Tom Berenger might have
He could have done it back then because that was around the time of the Big Chill. He would have been fine.
Yeah, he could have done that.
Yeah.
You probably would not have had a problem with that. That would have worked well. Yeah. I have in my next notes here, very interesting, you have to help me. I have Argento is linked to Moroder. I'm not really sure how. Maybe Moroder did music for him. I'm assuming he did.
It would not surprise me if he did. It would not surprise me at all if he did. I can't give you an example though.
I have upper shot of the church, key very Argento. So I don't know what that means, but I'll just say it. So somewhere near the beginning of this movie, there's an upper shot of a church, and a key for that would be Dario Argento.
Could it be like that shot when the chick gets murdered in Deep Red in the window? Maybe that's up.
I don't think it was that. I think it was more of that impressionistic, balcony-esque sort of up.
It could have been.
And then I did some research on Moroder. He's done over 430 movies. I did not know that.
I'm not surprised.
But I'm not surprised either.
One
of the other ones he did was American Gigolo. That was a key to me.
Right. So, I'm not sure which came first, but I'm pretty sure his musical career came first because he was working with Donna Summer in the late 70s. Like he did I Feel Love and a lot of her big disco hits, or at least that one in particular. And I don't know who tapped him to do movies or if it was sort of symbiotic. I have no idea how that works. I didn't do a lot of research on him. I probably should have, because Moroder, one of the reasons Bowie had to re-record the song was because the rights were tied up and he couldn't have Moroder on his album or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
so he did a different version of it. Yeah, because it's on the Let's Dance album.
Yeah, and this album is great. The Cat People album with all of his background music, but it also has both of Bowie's songs. It has the opening and the closing, so it's good. But a strong one with that. I'm just looking at notes. I have, oh, to your point, I have great arm attack, excellent gore, and what a capper, slow-mo blood on the shoes.
Yeah.
You know, that last.
Yeah, that was very Kubrick-esque. It reminded me of The Shining.
Dang you. That was going to be mine.
And I'm spitting them out because I probably don't have them written down. You know, it's funny. I didn't do, I guess, awards for the first movie because, oh, you know what? All right, I skipped that. Well, since we're getting toward awards, I will do the awards for the first movie first. It was a Hugo nominee for Best Dramatic Presentation from the short form that I guess was a treatment Bodine and Tourneur did.
Yep.
In 1993, it was winner of the National Film Preservation and DVD Reissue Awards. It is currently a Criterion movie. I don't know if you're aware of that.
Oh, I did not know that. That's
yeah,
great.
it is. It is included on the 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first film, not the second
one. Mm-hmm.
The second one, the only award this movie really won was or it didn't win, but it was a nominee for score and song, Golden Globes for Bowie. And then for some reason, Natasha Kinski was nominated for actress for the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror. So they don't know what they're doing. But
they had no other women up that year, obviously.
I guess, yeah, that's it exactly. That's all the awards I had. But we did do another one that's on our list, so that's cool.
Well, I have notes. I have oysters on the first date. Wow, that's pretty sexy.
It's pretty gross.
I have, interesting character, the cop who has all the exposition. So, because that scene was so terribly written when he's like, and let me tell you, we've got all these other girls have been disappearing. Now we traced it back to him. You know, I was going, really, dude?
Is that the Ron Diamond, Detective Ron Diamond, maybe?
Yeah, probably.
No, actually, that's probably Detective Brandt. I bet you it's Detective.
Yeah, that was Brandt, but there was another detective in that scene who had one line, so maybe that was him.
That would have been Ron Diamond. Or
he might have been one of the detectives in the massage parlor scene.
Yeah.
Which I had high hopes for that. That was pretty good. The way they, although PETA probably wouldn't let him do it today, but the way they staged that whole, the Panther at the window and, you know, going crazy in the room and tearing all the furniture. I mean, that was
when I was watching this movie, parts of it made me a little uneasy because I am an animal lover, and I was trying to think, you know, what kind of restrictions they had in 1982.
Yeah, I don't know, because it seemed like they put that panther through a lot.
Yeah, that panther was pissed off. It looked like to me.
Even like that ending credit when it goes, oh, that great big growl, and you go, whoa.
And it freezes. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought, I don't know how that would have worked today if we'd done that. And were they really prodding it with the prod thing?
Well, I mean, what we know now is that a lot of it would have been done with CGI that wasn't back then. So what were they actually doing? Yeah, for sure.
Although, you know, and again, bad writing and bad setup. Okay, the Panther's mad, so I'm going to strap this thing onto my arm. And I'm thinking, why would you strap it on? What the? It's not like it's going to pick it up and use it on you. Why would you? If it knocks it out of your hand, it knocks it out of your hand. Big deal. But don't strap it to you.
No, you know what it reminded me of The Evil Dead. That scene where I get so pissed because she actively turns that knife around in her hand
the other way.
She can be stabbed in the back. And the whole time I'm like, why are you strapping that to your hand? It's going to pull you in.
It's going to pull you into the case. Have you not seen Planet of the Apes? We know what happens.
It's the same contrived choreography or blocking, whatever you want to call it. And I was like, this is so stupid. Yeah.
And I have other notes. I just got a few more, but I've got the whole he's been a serial killer for years that we've been tracking down was really dated. Seemed just really, it doesn't work now, storytelling wise. I just don't think it worked.
Well, you got to refresh me. I don't remember this.
Well, you know, the brother disappears, right? And after, and so then the cops show up and they go downstairs and find the whole lair underneath with, you know, bones and all of that. And it's like, look at the bones.
Look at the bones.
I
I remember now. Yeah, and then he vanishes and doesn't come back until he mauls the prostitute or whatever. Right.
Right. Well, no, he comes back when he comes back to attack her again. This is the second time he disappears. He disappears at the beginning of the movie with the prostitute because they put him in the zoo. Right. This is the second time when he comes back right before.
Because he doesn't actually kill somebody. He has to kill somebody to become human again. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Because, and that's why they say you'll kill your lover or whatever.
Right.
I've got, okay, so yeah, this whole movie is very softcore porn-esque all the way through.
Well, including the fact that he gets one girl and gets to keep the other in a cage for the rest of her life.
Oh, well, that's kind of, yeah, that's interesting that I get my good girlfriend, but then my mistress is in a cage the whole time.
My crazy sex is behind bars.
Yeah. I've got, but then again, I've got stuff like, okay, nudity's not bad. Waders and shorts, yeah, that always works for me as a costume. The audio dubbing in a lot of this was really bad. Like in the scene when they're first going to eat and they're getting the oysters, all that is dubbed. The scene in the woods when they're chasing Malcolm McDowell, all that is dubbed.
Oh, I'm going to have to watch that again.
And it's really bad.
It's like Kung Fu Staircase.
Oh, I've got uncomfortable autopsy scene. You know, because that with the animal, that made me feel uncomfortable, seeing its eyes open and tongue out and all that. And I was going, did they really drug a freaking leopard and put it on this table? Well,
and did they drug one when they take it out of the room? Because that was a really realistic looking dummy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was real. Although, again, then story-wise, I immediately have, okay, why would you have an arm come out of the leopard? It makes no sense for any kind of transformation or anything.
Nothing at all. But it was like the shock element. It reminded me of several things that we used to see back around that time, including Alien. That movie Prophecy, The Thing is another one. I mean, just where you have like, it's like body horror.
Yeah, things inside of other things.
Yeah, Videodrome. Yeah.
I've got pool scene is a good homage, except this one's topless. I've got the drug sequence, the key in the dream sequence was very Ken Russell, you know, who was big at that time too.
Yes, I got that too.
So the dream sequence reminded me of Altered States, Ken Russell, that whole weird imagery.
There's something in this movie that drives me absolutely insane is why does she get on that train and leave and then all of a sudden she's back?
Yeah.
That made no sense whatsoever. I was like, what was the purpose of the train trip?
To get away, but then she has the dream where he says you have to go back.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So, yeah, I didn't like that. I did, however, even though it is kind of, like we said, kind of bondage or whatever, but I did like the protagonist sacrificing themselves at the end, of her saying, well, then lock me up, you know, keep me, sort of thing. I thought that was interesting, as opposed to the original where she does attack and kill somebody and then dies. You don't get that from the Nastasia, the Irina character. She doesn't kill anybody in this. So
she's
submissive. Well, yeah, that's the way it should be. But yeah, I've heard that. Roman Polanski told me.
Oh yeah, he texted me. I have a little bit of trivia and a little bit of keys left.
Okay, let's do that.
How do you want to handle that?
You do it.
All right. I may have to read this one because this one includes things that I'm not familiar with. But Malcolm McDowell appeared in 4 films involving time travel. Time After Time, Star Trek Generations, Just Visiting, and The Philadelphia Experiment. He auditioned for the role of Al Calavici in the television series Quantum Leap, which would have made 5 times. Guess he didn't get that part. There was a character in Quantum Leap, A Leap for Lisa, June 25th, 1957, which aired in 92, played by Roddy McDowall, who was not related. Notice the difference in the spelling of their last names. I copied and pasted that for some reason. It's odd. But yeah, Roddy McDowall, Malcolm McDowell, not related, but both do a lot of time travel movies, if you include Planet of the Apes as well.
So there you go.
There you go. So that's a little bit of trivia for you. We mentioned werewolf movies and the Wolfman being obvious keys for both these films.
Yes.
And apparently this bestial horror movie was made and released towards another surgence of that type of film in Hollywood in the early 80s, including American Werewolf in London, Wolfen, and The Howling, all 1981, the year before. Yeah. So it's like they said, hey, look at all these werewolf movies. Let's do a cat movie. Same as what happened in the 40s. Maybe history repeated itself. I'll have to call Shirley Bassey on that one. Just a little history repeated. You can dub that song in there.
Yeah, there you
go. You got another key?
I do not.
Okay, well let me do this one then, and this will be probably one of the last. This is the Kinski key. She worked with Christopher Lee in To the Devil a Daughter in 1976. I think she was a kid.
She must have been.
Yeah. Lee had previously worked with her father in The Devil's Daffodil. That's Klaus Kinski. Secret of the Red Orchid, Psycho Circus, 5 Golden Dragons, and then Count Dracula, the Spanish film from 1970. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Christopher Lee did a more literal interpretation of the novel that was filmed in Spain. It's actually on, this is funny. This could be one of my subjects because I watched it the other day. It's on Amazon. But you know, the horror of Dracula is the Hammer version with Christopher Lee doing the original story. Christopher Lee never felt they did Bram Stoker justice, so he ended up teaming up with a Spanish director and doing one called Count Dracula, where Klaus Kinski plays Renfield. And it is on Amazon. Yeah, you can watch it. It's okay. It's not great.
Kinski also played Nosferatu, right?
He did.
In that version.
In the remake, which I don't think I've ever seen.
Really? It's pretty good. It's very artsy, very blue filter, French impressionistic sort of.
Because I love the original silent film, but I don't think I've seen the remake. So maybe that'll be a podcast later this season.
That could be.
Yeah. Wow. It's weird how we have all these weird connections and seasons.
Well, you know, like keys connected together.
Yeah, they are. The Kinski key. So anyway, that's the last of the keys I have. Anything you would like to say to sum up this Mad Cat double feature?
Mad Cat double feature. Good way of saying it. I would just say that each of the movies has, like we said at the beginning, their own thing to offer. I definitely think the 42 version is much superior to the 82, and that it is totally different styles. It's neat to watch them back to back and see the different types of horror and horror storytelling, I guess. Yep. Yeah,
I agree. The first one deserves. I think they both deserve a place in the whole horror oeuvre, but the first one is miles above as far as style, whereas the other one is just kind of a cool genre B movie, maybe.
But it's miles ahead in form of nudity and music.
Yeah,
that works.
And bondage sex.
Well, only once.
It's pretty graphic now that you mention it. It's
Well,
almost
it's even graphic in the scene with Malcolm McDowell and the other girl he picks up at the cemetery. You know, even that scene's kind of graphic too.
I can't
Let
remember.
mommy take care of it for you and all that. It's like, oh, okay. So when he thinks about his mom, he gets, never mind.
Well, you know, and that's something we did not even touch upon was the whole incestuous.
But now, see, now you've just opened that whole can of worms.
Oh yeah. So before we sign off, Paul and Irena are brother and sister in this movie, and Paul basically has found her and brought her to the States so that he can have sex with her, so that they don't turn into cats.
Yes.
So,
yes.
and that
the
apparently
same as their
parents did so as well. Yes.
Yeah, and which is another element that could easily have been like, what, did we really need that as a story spark for this?
Is that why you're trying to get through this episode without bringing it up?
Yeah, could there have been a different way you did that other than the incest? But okay, sure.
Okay, yeah. So we've got incest and bondage and porn and gore. So it deserves to be in there somewhere. Yeah, as far as the horror genre oeuvre canon. But yes. I'll take the Val Lewton.
Me too. All right, cool. So we in wrapping up, just want to say thank you guys for listening and or watching us, and we appreciate your support. Please like us, comment, email us, let us know what you think. Did you like either or these movies, sort of thing? Maybe give us some titles of movies you'd like to see us do, because we are always looking for what we're going to do next, sort of
thing. That, or for like a bonus Patreon thing too.
Yeah.
And we're doing video continuously now. And yes. You can buy my book, The Dead Next Door, on Amazon.
It's
T.W.
awesome.
Smith.
It will scare you, though. So
it will scare you. It's a zombie book. I think you'll like it.
Zombies.
Cool.
And Tim, I'll see you next time right here on Johnny Has the Keys.
That sounds great, David.
All right, man.
All right, bye.
Bye.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.